Podtacular, the unofficial Halo Universe podcast, presents episode 612, Retribution, recorded live on January 11th, 2018. Hello everyone, welcome to Podtacular, the unofficial Halo Universe podcast. I am your host, Deathstorm.
And I am your co-host, Godzilla T.
And we are finally back to talk about a Halo book.
Hey, we finally got Des to read one.
Yay! The last one we did was Last Light, I believe.
Yeah, I believe it was.
It's actually pretty appropriate, because this one picks up shortly after Last Light.
Yeah, it does.
Which is one of the reasons why I picked the book to go off of. But it was a good segue into it.
Yeah. You know, there was just one little short story, which was at the very beginning of this book, but was in Fractures. Which,
yes.
You know, nice little short story, kind of catches you up on the Gammas and Lopez.
And we will talk about that a little bit before we go into the details of Retribution.
Yeah, because it is relevant, I mean, to the book.
Yes.
We finally, and we also get a...
closure?
Well, not really closure, but we get to see what... oh, darn, what's the AI's name now?
Intrepid Eye?
Yeah, Intrepid Eye's been up to.
Yes, we do.
And I'll say totally called it, but anyway.
Really? Because I certainly did not, although you've read all the Halo books, and I haven't, so...
Oh, what I called didn't have anything to do with Halo. It just had to do with knowing Oni.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. But yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. First of all, the couple of things that we want to hit on before we kick off. First thing is this weekend is a free Halo 5 weekend for Gold subscribers who do not have Halo 5. It is available now until Sunday at 11 p.m. Pacific time, which is 2 a.m. on Monday morning Eastern time. And it is also available, I think, for 20% off if you want to just buy the game outright. There's also a quick play matchmaking playlist that is Slayer only 4v4 with Fireteam support up to 2. So if you have a buddy and you want to go in and play, then you can go into this playlist and it's curated for some of the best 3 maps and that is favorited among the community. So looking at you, Junos, since you apparently haven't played, I guess. Although I don't know if you have even gold.
You know, the funny thing about that is they have a 4v4 playlist, but they limit the team to 2.
I was a little curious about that myself.
I mean, if it was a 2v2 playlist, okay. But it's a 4v4 playlist. Why would you limit the team to 2 people? It just doesn't make sense.
Probably has to do something with team balancing. Or making it, I guess, fun for everyone so they don't just get pub stomped. That'd be my guess, at least. Because you have a full team of 4 just going in and completely decimating new players. It's not very appealing to those players. So I can see where wanting to keep the fire team to 2 might give it a little more of an enjoyable experience for people that maybe are a little new to Halo 5 or haven't played it in a while since the last time that they had the free 2 gold weekend for Halo 5.
Well, generally, whenever I get a game like that, it's 1 or 2 players that are doing the stomping.
Right, but it wouldn't be as bad of a stomping? Because you get the possibility of having the other team get 2 really good players as well, so you have the 2 good players on either side stomping each other.
Yeah, it never works that way.
I'm just saying, I can see the angle for it a little bit. It makes a little bit of sense.
And then they put it in the casual playlists on top of everything else. They just, I don't know.
It is what it is. It's there.
It's there.
I don't think they did this last time.
It's double XP, so play it.
There you go.
If you're going for your 152, I'm still shooting for 145 and a half.
I'm at 137 right now, so you're doing better than me.
Last I looked, I only had, to get to 146, I only had like 865,000 XP to go.
Where's Erikibu? Hashtag reset Erikibu. Well, I think this is probably based on feedback that they've gotten, so maybe this will be a little bit better experience for newcomers into the matchmaking experience.
I hope it does help the population and get some new people interested in it.
I'm assuming it will. There's always Warzone Firefight. There's a recommendation out from David Ellis on Twitter to do either the quick play or heroic Warzone Firefight. For a newcomer to Halo, that's a pretty safe bet for multiplayer.
Yeah, I did my Firefight game today.
Yay! I might do it after the podcast. Depends on how long this goes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm having way too much fun in Super Fiesta. But the problem is I'm running out of XP boosts.
Oh no! I'd give you some, but they're non-transferable.
And sure enough, I've got a lot of
rec points,
game victory XP points or XP cards, but every time I put one of those on, I get stomped. I get the absolute worst weapon draws that you possibly can.
I would say do them tomorrow, but I have a feeling there's probably going to be some other different things that we play tomorrow. Although I am planning on being there tomorrow, and it's funny because last week, I think it was last week or maybe the week before. I think it was last week. We were talking about a PUBG style game mode for Halo 5. Well, Unsorted Gaming posted a YouTube video not a few days after we talked about that on his YouTube channel, and he made a PUBG style Halo 5 custom. So I'm hoping we can possibly get enough people tomorrow to at least try it out. Maybe have it as a standalone video on our YouTube.
Possibly.
At least that's my hope. I think it'd be cool. That'll be tomorrow if we get enough people, though. Otherwise, I'm assuming Super Fiesta or Customs or Firefight. Well, yeah, I mean, we'll have more than 2 people, so we can't exactly do the quick play. But
yeah, here lately it's been SWAT or Super Fiesta. So
Super Fiesta, or we could try just classic Warzone.
Or it's just so much fun, Super Fiesta. I think right now it's pretty much everybody's favorite playlist.
I think it's probably, if I had to guess, well, either Super Fiesta is the most popular or HCS, but I have a feeling Super Fiesta because there's probably a lot more casual players out there than there are competitive players. That's my guess anyways. Come tomorrow, we'll be participating in online shenanigans, and just message me or GT since I'll be there tomorrow, and we'll be starting around 8:30 on Friday. Although by the time this podcast gets out there, it'll already be past that.
So join us next Friday.
Yeah, we might try PUBG again if we get enough people, but most likely do Super Fiesta or Firefighter or whatever. That is out for now. If you're a gold subscriber, you can get the Halo 5 Guardians for free for the weekend and play to your heart's content. And that quick play playlist, I think, is only going to be there during the time that the free gold is there for Halo 5 to use. And that's the only bit of Halo news that we have this week, because there was no community update or other news post on Waypoint. So that's what we're stuck with for now.
Sure glad we moved the podcast to Thursday.
I know, right?
Catch that update. Watch, it'll come out tomorrow.
Yeah, that would suck if it did.
I swear they do it on purpose.
It's like, okay, when's Podtacular recording this week? Let's do it the day after. No, you're listening, Grim.
He's probably one of the lurkers we get.
It wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't put it past him to every now and then just kind of catch up on the backlog of a few of our episodes. Let's move on to the main topic of tonight, which is Halo Retribution. There is a story that preludes this in Fractures, which we'll cover a little bit before we dive into the main event. Both of them are written by Troy Denning. The first one is A Necessary Truth, and it is a short story, just probably 25 or 30 or so pages, and it is a training exercise for some of the Spartan 3s that have been assigned under Veta Lopiz, who was the inspector behind the Last Light novel. So she was snatched up by Osmond herself and has been converted over to an Oni operative and is undergoing training, trying to familiarize herself with all the different protocols that she's learned over the past only 3 months, which is a lot to learn in only 3 months. And overall, just trying to develop the team camaraderie with what is being dubbed her Ferret team, which is her and her 3 Spartan 3s that she has.
Which is Olivia, Mark, and Ash.
Yep.
The 3 Gamma Halo, or Gamma
Spartan 3s.
Gamma class Spartan 3s from Onyx, from the Ghost of Onyx series. These are the 3 Spartans that have to have their smoothers to be able to control their aggressive tendencies.
Concoction of drugs. Illegal drugs, but still drugs. Destiny Halo is asking, did she learn to execute Order 66?
It's kind of a neat little story. It takes place, I can't think of the name of the world it's on, but they're basically doing a covert.
I'm pulling it up on my Kindle.
Yeah, a covert observation mission where someone is talking up Olivia, and they go through, and you have Veta sitting over by the window. They're in a bar, and you have Mark and Ash sitting at a table. Being awkward is probably the easiest way to put it.
Yeah.
You think about it. You got 3 Spartans in there that haven't really socialized with normal people doing covert work. This older gentleman's chatting up Olivia, buying her drinks, stuff like that. And, well, it turns out that during this, Olivia and this guy go over to a table. Waitress brings over a bottle, and the bottle is laced with some kind of drug, which drugs Olivia in kind of a truth-type serum. And this guy is chatting up Olivia, trying to learn about the Spartan 3 program.
Lopez knows about this because they actually have the comms wired to where they can hear everything. Your typical spy training exercise type of thing. And it is important to note that this is a training exercise. It's not something that is an actual mission, but they're treating it like it is.
Yeah, well, the deal is Lopez and her team are in the bar training.
Right.
It turns out that this other guy, he's not part of the training exercise.
No, he's not.
Lopez realized something's wrong with Olivia and goes to confront the guy. Let's see. Sorry, it's been a little bit since I read that one.
It's okay.
Realizes that, Olivia's been drugged.
Basically, she tells Mark and Ash to start moving on her to get her extracted. And then she gets confronted, I think, by the
Waitress,
actually, right before she goes up to her. And then kind of a brawl breaks out. There's a big guy who kind of steps in front of Mark and Ash, and they basically knock him to the ground, trying to get to Olivia and take her out. After kind of a brawl in the bar, they get to Olivia. I forget whether Mark or Ash takes her out. They get them out of the back door. They also knock out the guy who dosed Olivia and was trying to take them back for interrogation. And this whole thing in the bar is just kind of went a little further than they were anticipating. The team that was supposed to be kind of drilling with them is Oscar Squad, I think is what they were called. I think at one point in the story, Lopez was kind of thinking this is way past protocol and what they were supposed to be doing, but there's a phrase that plays back in her head that Osmond told her, and the only rule is there is no rules. Kind of one of those situations where it's like, this seems way too far, but I'm not going to take any chances, and I'm going to act on what I need to do to make sure my Ferret team is safe.
Yeah, in the process of extracting Olivia and detaining this gentleman, Veta and Olivia go back to their safe house, which basically winds up being like the presidential suite on a military base, whatever that is.
It's the Halsey suite. It's called the Halsey suite.
The Halsey suite, but you know, you get the idea. Nice nod.
Yeah.
You know, like this won't draw any attention, but anyway.
Of course not.
In the process of rescuing Olivia, the waitress does step in front of Veta to hamper or to stop her from getting to Olivia. And basically, Lopez cons a couple of enlisted men that are there in the bar to guard her until authorities arrive. And then Mark and Ash take the big guy outside, and Olivia and Veta go back to the safe house. Well, the waitress beats up the two enlisted men and gets away from them, then proceeds to chase after Mark and Ash. After that, they cut back to the safe house where where Veta is treating Olivia and giving her a counteragent to whatever this drug was.
Babble juice.
Yeah, babble juice.
Which is quick acting and has actually a very potent effect on Spartan 3s because of all the chemical imbalance and the reasons why the smoothers are needed in the first place.
You know, Veta starts to realize that something is wrong. She's like, you know, Oscar wouldn't have taken it that far.
Right.
Oscar Squad wouldn't. And then, you know, as she's working through this, guess who comes knocking on the door?
Well, that's after Mark and Ash get back. But
yeah, Mark and Ash. And yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know, Mark and Ash show up to the door, and they come in, and Veta's like, "Where's the guy? He's dead."
Well, what happened?
How did he die?
Well, what happened was...
Well, let's see. Really, what happened? And Mark, I believe it was Mark that was actually injured, which is odd because being a Spartan, you'd think they could probably be able to defend themselves. Well, it turns out that the waitress was in on it too.
Yeah.
And she was able to injure Mark and kill this gentleman. Of course, Mark and Ash disposed of the body after rifling through all his pockets and getting all his stuff, and then went back to the safe house after cleaning the scene to leave no evidence. Mark and Ash are in the middle of telling Lopez what's going on when someone else shows up.
Surprise, Sarah Nosman.
Sarah Nosman walks in with the leader of Oscar Squad, and Lopez pretty much starts lighting into him about what went on. And of course, he has no idea what went on because they didn't plan any of it.
And he kind of got the wind knocked out of him too, when one of Lopez's Spartans, I think, knocked him out.
Yeah, he was one of the guys that was in the bar.
Yeah. That
got in the Spartan's way.
I think that was as Mark and Ash were
No,
getting
actually,
up.
that was Lopez that did that to him. I forgot.
It was?
It was Lopez.
Tiny little Lopez.
Yeah. She kind of used the male anatomy against him. Is kind of the way it read to me. Ouch.
Yeah, that's just painful thinking about it.
Yeah. So, you know, Osmond's coming there just trying to sort out what the heck's going on.
Well, yeah, and then the Oscar Squad leader and Lopez are pointing fingers back and forth at each other, and they finally get to some key elements that neither team did. So there's a surveillance camera blackout that was done by neither of the teams. And then there was cleanup that was done by neither of the teams. And Lopiz was trying to defend her Spartans because they didn't need a bad record because Osmond was going out on the limb to even making this squad in the first place.
The leader of the Oscar squad was actually accusing them of murder.
Yes.
Of this guy that had doped Olivia. He had some rather circumstantial evidence, like, the guy looked dead when they were carrying him, which he was.
Yeah, but Lopiz didn't know yet because Mark hadn't told her that part.
Lopiz didn't know what was going on completely. So through most of this conversation, she's bluffing because she really has no idea what's going on. Mark and Ash are over there dancing in their pants because they know what's going on and they want to step in and defend Lopez, but she's not having any of it.
Right. Anyway, it boils down to Osmond giving them 2 hours to prove that they're innocent, that there's another party involved that wasn't Oscar Squad. And that begins this whole kind of rabbit trail of digging into personnel files and other surveillance that may not have been blocked out, trying to identify some of the acting members that were actually not part of the exercise. And that led to the one guy that actually dosed Livy, and then the one bartender, Gao.
Yeah, it turns out that the guy that was chatting up Olivia was some type of investigative reporter.
Yeah, and he had leaked out some Oni secret stuff before, and there was actually some unpublished Spartan III program-related information that hadn't quite made it out to the public yet, but that he was the source for.
Well, they found classified files on his data pad.
Yes. And those were the things that hadn't gotten out yet. But some of the dialogue was funny because when Lopiz was asking about, well, where is he? Where can we interrogate him? It's like, well, he's dead and we threw him out the airlock. But don't worry, we got his data pad. We can figure out who he is. So they find his cover name, they find the files, and they dive into it a little more, and they identify that this other person, the lady that was the bartender, also had a part in it, and that she was probably one of the sources that was giving him the information.
And they also discover that she's ex-UNSC.
Ex-Oni.
This is where you're introduced to, was it Blue or
Dark Moon Enterprises.
Enterprises. Can anybody guess what Dark Moon is? It's in the name. Anyway, they basically turn out to be a competing company to Oni. They are a private firm that is being hired out to do covert operations, do prisoner or pay ransoms, kidnap people back, things like that. Stuff that you don't want the police doing.
Basically being Oni in a private matter without being Oni.
Being a pay-for Oni service.
Exactly. The other weird thing about this is the firm had only been around for a month. And it already had huge clientele and has scooped up so many ex-Oni operatives that had been labeled. And this one lady was actually able, under Dark Moon, no access, no contact.
That's what they've actually flagged Dark Moon as. No Oni operative is to have any type of contact with Dark Moon. But it's kind of neat how they identified this woman. Lopez basically went over to the doorknob and flipped through
facial recognition access logs.
Yeah, basically, ID pictures to find her.
So the one thing that they had determined is if she still wanted to be around, the system that she couldn't disable was, and the way that the access worked on here was voice recognition and facial recognition. So if she needed to actually access doors, she couldn't exactly wipe out her face from the system. So they found her face, found her name, and pulled up her records and found a lot of dirt. So they compiled up a message back to her saying that we know who you are and CC'd Osmond. And probably not 10 seconds later, they hear charges being set on the door to the suite.
Well, they hear rustling out in the hall, and they assume charges because that's what they would be doing.
Well, and it sounds like it too, I think. I think that was it. Anyways.
Hands, don't spoil it.
Well, I mean, if people haven't read it, then they're being spoiled anyways.
Well, he's getting ahead of us. That's not nice. Turns out this woman had got her cronies and planned on attacking Lopez and her Ferret team. Of course, they realized what was going on. Mark and Ash went to either side of the door. Lopez and Olivia took cover in the suite. Door blows up, all hell breaks loose, everybody dies that was trying to get in the room.
Yep.
So pretty much the way you'd expect it. Of course, they make comments like, Veta's ears were ringing and, things like that. How she wasn't used to dealing with that type of situation.
Yeah, that close quarters combat gives you a new appreciation for ear protection. Basically. And needless to say, after all the commotion died, a few minutes later, Osmond comes back.
Like, what happened here?
Yeah. And it's kind of unsettling to her that this has gotten this far. So she's like, well, I guess it's time for you to get out there and actually start doing some work.
And, that's pretty much the gist of the primer for this book. And they do make mention of this little short story in a couple of points in the book. But, it's just really brief stuff. So,
yeah. So now we're going to get into Retribution. We're not going to exactly go detail for detail in the book, just kind of hitting on some of the major points and some of the interesting points for us, especially the big reason on why Dark Moon was mentioned, how it came up so quickly is a pretty interesting thing. Where the source of Dark Moon actually came from, because it actually references something in one of the Halo games. And then it's just cool to see a continuing of the story. And then the next book we'll probably do is Legacy of Onyx, so we'll just continue this storyline all the way through. We'll just go through that. Retribution takes place, I think it was 6 months after Last Light, which is 3 months after this short story. So all this is happening in a pretty close time frame, and this is all happening shortly after the Human Covenant War. I think it's like November, December time frame of 2553. So this is all taking place after Halo 3, before Halo 4. Yeah, the first chapter starts December 12th. The last chapter, well, the last actual chapter, not the log chapter, is December 16th? December 17th. December 17th. So it literally takes place within 5 days, this whole book.
It's a lot of pages for 5 days.
Yeah. A lot happens in 5 days. And a big magic number in this book is 30.
Big explosions. Oh.
Sublight travel speeds. So we start off with what looks like a deal trying to be struck down. And the Ferret team is acting as pirates. They're trying to go after a mysterious kidnapping of Fleet Admiral Gracelyn Tua. So something has happened, and Osmond personally has a vested interest in this, and they're trying to figure out what happened because they are suspecting the Banished is behind this. So this is actually, I guess, the first time in written record. Again, I haven't read the other books, but from a novel perspective, that Banished is actually brought up in
this is the first time that the Banished actually appears in the written fiction.
That's pretty short after Halo 3. I guess they were just like, nope, we hate the Covenant. We are breaking off and doing our own thing.
Well, actually, before the end of the Covenant War, Atriox had already broken from the Covenant.
Oh, I guess that's right. Yeah.
The Covenant was fighting on two fronts. They were fighting humanity, and they were fighting the Banished.
The Banished wasn't that big, though, at the time,
Not
right?
that big, no. But they were a significant threat. They got a lot bigger after the war ended.
Gotcha. So I guess this is probably the first time on the human side where we actually see a within Oni admission or acknowledgement that the Banished is actually causing the UNSC issues, if that makes sense.
The way the book starts out, they're in a bar again.
Seems to be a very popular place for them to start. Underage Spartans in the bar.
They happen to be in a bar on Venezia.
Oh, that was another thing from the other story, not to bounce back too much, but one of the things that they brought up at the beginning was the Spartan 3s learning how to chill out, and they were still actually underage. I think they were, 14 and 15, so learning how to take a drink and actually be able to still function, which apparently they haven't had.
Actually, with the chemical cocktail that they'd already been treated with, alcohol had very little effect on the Spartans.
But it had some effect.
It had some effect, but not near the same effect that it did on a normal human. But it is something they had to learn to cope with. What got Olivia all juiced up was the babble juice.
Right. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah. But anyway, you have Lopez, you have the 3 Spartans, and they're in a bar on Venezia, and they're getting, the setup is they're trying to strike a deal for transport.
They've got some stolen havocs that they're trying to get rid of.
With the underlying part is they're also trying to capture this particular arms dealer that they're dealing with.
Right.
The one thing I find absolutely hilarious is they basically have the Spartans dressed like drug addicts.
Because they can really play that part well, and they don't.
Think punk rock. Well, think bad punk rock. And, that's what the Spartans are dressed like, complete with piercings.
I think there was a few times in there where they were actually commenting on her having to try to tell them to kind of chill out again or actually act more into character.
Not as much as in the first story, but yeah. They have learned a lot in the last few months. They have learned, they've learned how to act their role a lot more. Most of Veta's interactions with the Spartans are basically, subtle hand gestures and things like that, just to kind of keep them from rushing the assault portion of their plan. Yeah,
not have the twitchy trigger finger too much.
Because part of the plan is to have Fred and Kelly crash the little party.
So this is all staged. They're operating undercover. They're trying to get to the arms dealer, which they believe has knowledge of what happened to Fleet Admiral Tua and his family. They find I think there was one guy that they were looking for transport, and they were talking to him like in the back corner, and then a scuffle kind of rose out. I think guns were drawn at one point, and then the bartender in the back had to get involved and had to calm everyone down.
Well, actually, that was the owner of the establishment.
Right.
Which, basically, this guy, you piss him off, you don't do business in the town ever again. If you continue breathing.
It's probably a pretty big if, too. Especially for a bar full of pirates.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea here, they've got a couple of things going. One, this particular gunrunner has what they call a Turaco. Or is that what they call it? No, it was something else. It was a stealth ship.
Yeah, it was the Turaco is the ship that they found on the Silent.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the ship. What was the name of the ship? But anyway, it's some type of brand new stealth ship that hadn't actually really gone into production yet. It's kind of one of those deals. There's only 6 of them in the galaxy, and he's got 3 of them somehow. Anyway, and the idea is they are posing as arms smugglers that have stolen several nukes, and they are playing like their buyer is the Banished, but they're actually trying to pique the interest of people that trade with the Keepers of the One Freedom, which you'll remember from Last Light. They were the faction that was also trying to recover Intrepid Eye and was betrayed by the now president of Gao, whatever his name was.
Yeah, but that has a nice all new story to it too.
That comes back a little later. So they have this little discussion, and the scuffle is about payment because the arms dealer says, I don't think so. So Veta starts picking up the payment, and one of his cronies says, you can just leave those, consultation fee. And, Veta's like, no, ain't happening. She manages to best this particular gentleman, and, things get a little exciting.
And then all of a sudden, reports of Spartans. Everyone get out.
Yeah.
And everyone actually doesn't react at first. Everyone's like, really? And he's like, seriously, in 60 seconds, there's Spartans going to be here. If you don't get caught involved and arrested, get out now.
Well, the owner comes out and states that there are Spartans on the way. And people don't start moving quick enough for him, so he basically says, the Spartans are coming. If you want to live, you'll be out of here in the next 60 seconds, or I will start shooting you.
That was enough to start a panic, and everyone starts running.
Everybody tended to leave. Oh, and this particular gun runner, the one that Veta has been negotiating with, happens to have a brute in his employ. I found that to be I found that to be an interesting twist.
Yeah, but not until he gets completely smashed in by the wall of the hole that Fred and Kelly make, or Fred and Linda make.
No, the brute makes the hole. Fred and Kelly come in through the front of the establishment, and they start a firefight. And of course, the Spartans are shooting back at the other Spartans. The Spartan 3s are shooting at the Spartan 2s, to make a good show. And before the Spartans crash, they come to the conclusion that it's probably best not to leave by any of the doors because there's probably a sniper covering them, which they were right. That's what Linda was doing, or that's what Kelly was doing.
Yeah.
She was covering the exits to catch them as they exited. Of course, Lopez and her team are on comms, so they know what's going on. Basically, they have the brute break a hole in the wall.
Oh, okay. I misread that.
And then shortly after the brute exits, his head explodes.
Yeah, saw that one coming.
Yeah. Kelly captures the arms dealer and takes him away. And then the Veta and her ferrets, they basically put on a show of escaping from the Spartans. During the escape, these jackals that were listening in on our conversation with the gunrunner pull up in a van and help them get away.
Yep.
Which these particular jackals, they do business with the Keepers of the One Freedom. This really was the plan all along. This whole mess was to try to get their attention so they would take them to the Keepers of the One Freedom. And that's about as far as we know for now. Then, they get to negotiating price and stuff like that. And then they cut back to what was 2 weeks previous. And now you get the explanation as to why they're doing what they're doing. And this is where where they start discussing the murder and kidnapping of Admiral Tua's family.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why is there's a detected, I guess, some kind of transport heading in the direction of a banished flotilla, and Osmond was wanting to know for certain if they needed to engage to try to launch a rescue operation or if they needed to look elsewhere.
Yeah, they had an owning stealth ship shadowing a banished flotilla, and she brings in Lopez to try to point the investigation in a direction as to where they need to look for Admiral Tua's family, because Admiral Tua wasn't kidnapped. She's in pieces on the floor. The way they describe the scene, it's a pretty brutal scene.
Yeah, we won't get into details, but that kind of sets up the ground layer for this whole launch of this special op that the Ferret are now involved with.
It gets even more complicated after this.
Oh, yeah. As the Jackals are on their way to what we'll find out is the kind of the home base of operations for the keepers of the One Freedom, they're negotiating final price. They're discussing what the payload actually is and what they're trying to sell it for. There's obviously this kind of power grab of we're going to do things this way and then we're going to do things this way, and kind of this whole back and forth. And they finally get to where they're going. And of course, Lopez doesn't know where they're going at this point. They just know they're going somewhere to try to actually trade these off.
Well, the deal was that the Jackals were going to take them to the Banished to deliver the Banished's nuclear weapons.
Right.
But that's not really where Veta wanted to go. She wanted to go to the Keeper's base, but they didn't know where that was, and the Jackals did. And in the process of this going on, the Jackals tried to kill Veta and her team with the ostanolone gas.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what the name of it was. Anyway, it's pretty much detrimental to anything and everything except Kigyar.
And that backfired.
Yeah.
We actually have a gap between the part where they launched off and coming back to the ship where I think it was Ash that figured out their plan and actually removed the canisters.
Yeah, replaced them with an inert gas like helium or acetylene or something. I don't remember what it said. I think they said, but I'm not sure.
Helium would have been fun.
Yeah, of course, the Spartans fort that. And one of the, this is kind of an important piece. One of the nukes is not actually a nuke. It is a nuke casing with a slipspace beacon inside of it in disguise. That's important because once they get to where they're going, the Ferret team needs to activate that so that the Oni ship that's following them knows where to go. The Silent Joe. Yeah, that's the name of it.
And that's the team, or that's the ship that Blue Team basically rides on throughout this whole book.
Well, for this first part.
Yeah. So they're tracking Lopez and where they're going and waiting for this beacon to pop up. And I think it was before they entered into slip space where they heard about the plan for using the gas. GD, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they were wondering if the mission was actually a wash or not and if they needed to go in and try to rescue them. I think it was Fred that eventually talked down Osmond and some of the others on that ship of like, no, they know what they're doing. They should have been able to figure this out. Let them kind of do their thing. Turns out that they were okay. They got another microburst after they dropped out of slip space, and they started tailing them. I think it was, a 15-hour jump difference?
Something like that. What we're actually talking about is the Spartans had actually bugged the Kigyard ship. And to hide the fact that they had bugged the ship, the bugs were designed to send random data bursts out, in microbursts to the Silent Joe so they could get caught up on what has happened in, a set period of time. And in one of those microbursts, they overhear the Kigyar talking about the ostanolone gas. And there's pretty good sized debate on whether they should go after them and rescue the team or continue on with the mission.
And they decide to continue on with the mission. And when they get there when the Kidyar and Lopez's team actually get to the base of the Keepers, I forget what it is at the moment. It's Silent... Salvation Base. That's what it's called.
Yeah, Salvation Base.
Yeah, so the Kidyar are actually talking with, I guess, basically the air traffic control equivalent of what Salvation Base has, and discussing how they're going to actually get the nukes down there and trade them. And I think you mentioned this already, that the Kidyar were going to basically kill Lopez's team and steal the nukes to trade and get something out of it. The Kidyar had, I think, discussed with the guy that was asking them to, or trying to get clearance for them to land, that they were actually going to send out a team to inspect the nukes to make sure that they were okay to approach, because you don't want live nukes just going into a base unchecked. And these nukes actually weren't fully together because they were missing another crucial piece to actually make them live nukes. They're DT nukes, so it's, was it tritium and deuterium?
Yeah, the tritium gas or tritium compound had been removed.
Right, so the nukes actually couldn't do anything.
No, they could be armed and they could explode, but it would be no difference in setting off the equivalent amount of, say, C4, something like that. There'd be a bang, but it wouldn't be a nuclear explosion. To kind of put this time frame into perspective, during the slip space jump, they did the Ostanolon gas, and this was closer to where they were going to exit slip space. Of course, that failed. The Spartan team went around and eliminated the crew, and on approach to Salvation Base is when they come up to the bridge, and you have the air traffic controller talking with the Kikyar. They're trying to get clearance to land and all this stuff. And of course, and then Olivia and Lopez burst into the bridge and kill the pilot and one of the others, or one other crewman that was on the bridge, and wounded I forget what they call it, the captain. I forget what the Kikyar name was for it.
That's fine. I forget too.
Of course, they wind up killing everybody. She negotiates with the air traffic controller to have a team come aboard, a boarding team come aboard and inspect the nukes and try to still work out a deal. Because, they went through their options as to what plan was actually going to work and had the least amount of chance of dying. And this was it.
And they almost got away with it, too.
Almost?
Except the one human that came to inspect the nukes actually caught the beacon. Almost made it past her, but didn't quite. They were exposed, and then another whole firefight ensued.
Well, I think, no, if I remember correctly,
it's a small one.
Veta actually said one of them is there is a slip space beacon in one of them, because it was, she's still trying to push the banished angle. So she's still arguing for them to let her go so she can deliver these nukes to the banished. And she's doing that to try to entice them into actually taking the nukes. So they have a human technical advisor or whatever that confirms that, yes, there is a slip space beacon. And the reason Lopez told him that is because, this thing's active and the banished are coming. You need to let us go.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And I think that eventually was convincing enough.
Yeah. But, before that, the chieftain that was inspecting the ship basically was sending his brutes out to capture the rest of the crew, which, just happened to be 3 Spartans.
Yeah, they didn't last very long.
They didn't make it very far. And then the chieftain kind of had to readjust his negotiating skills.
Well, I think they let him land at one point, right?
Well, they did, but only after Lopez had turned over the supposed detonator to the nukes.
Right.
And the reason I say supposed is because the detonator was actually rigged to the acetylene gas,
Which they had rehooked up.
which they had replaced or had rigged their own little surprise for the boarding party.
When was it when they actually landed? Because I think it was after they landed and they got off the ship where they popped the gas.
But yeah,
Right?
well,
Or was that after?
Right after Lopez turned over the supposed detonator is when they actually landed. They were being detained. In other words, they were cuffed and being let off the ship when
Ash's little backup detonator.
they sprung their trap. The Spartans basically broke their cuffs. Ash detonated the acetylene gas, which killed everybody in the ship. And the rest of the Spartans went on cleanup, and Lopez took on the tech lady. What did they call her?
I forget. It was a smaller detail of the story.
They had some silly name for her. But anyway,
I'll look it up.
so Lopez killed her, and they rounded all the bodies up, stuffed them back in the ship, and continued with their mission.
Well, one thing they discovered, something that they didn't totally expect, which was a top secret Oni Repex Turaco. This was like something that was still in like pre-development. I think only one of 12 actually existed. Something like that. So they knew something was going on when they saw this ship there. It's like, this I don't like what we're getting into here.
And then this is also when they start making mention that this is a Forerunner facility.
Yeah, something that they noticed was a slight little shadow that kind of remained after they took a step off, and Hardlight reacts that way, so they figured out that they're actually on a Forerunner facility, and that's further confirmed by the artificial gravity for such a small place that they're at, not to mention the one detention center, which we'll get to in a minute. There was a lot going on here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. They basically come up with a plan. They split off. Ash goes on distraction duty. Mark and Veta
Going to the detention center.
to what they determine is the detention center. And then Olivia is assigned to
Take over
infiltrate the Turaco. So the next part is Mark and Veta entering the detention center, and
There's no one at the desk.
there's no one home.
It's all peaceful, too, strangely.
All quiet. And the longer they're there, the more peaceful things that they feel.
Subliminal peacefulness
Yes.
is taking over. They actually noticed some wet spots, though, that they think is water at the time.
Well, it is water.
Well, later on, they find some other wet spots that actually turn out to be bloody spots.
This is actually water. They find a dirty water footstep. And the water came from outside because as they look back, they could actually see waves crashing against the landing gear of the ships.
There's a tide that came in, basically.
That
Kind of what it was like.
It's a Forerunner thing. This water comes and goes as needed, I guess. I don't quite get this, but anyway.
It's a smaller detail of the story.
Yeah. But what they determine is that there's somebody here dropping off or picking up prisoners. Sorry. And, their first thought is there's somebody here getting someone else, or there's a second Oni team. Hence the reason there was nobody basically at the front desk.
And they Well, they found the dead bodies of the rest of Tua's family, with some oddities.
Yeah, they were missing some pieces.
They had basically been cut open from the front in half and had all their internal organs, minus their intestines, but including their brains, removed.
Mm-hmm. And the scene was staged to look like, they were attacked by the brutes.
Of the keepers, yeah. And that didn't quite add up to
Lopiz.
It didn't. And they actually had determined, based on, I think, what was it, finding the blood, that the people that they thought people had actually dropped them off here and staged this, and the people that had done it had been there recently.
The blood that was splattered around didn't match the condition of the bodies.
Right.
On the way up, Mark and Lopez had actually come across this other team, but they hid from them and let them go by because, their mission was to find the Tuas. They found the Tuas, and Lopez said she wanted to take the bodies with them because it's evidence. Well, they catch up with this other team as they're exiting this place, and while they've been in there, it's been like 6 hours.
Even though to them it's been 15 minutes.
But yeah, to Lopez and Mark, it's been 15 minutes.
Temporal distortion. Yay.
Yay. And the same thing happens to Ash. While he's out leaving a false trail to lead the keepers away from the Turaco, he experiences the same thing. Ash actually returns to the Turaco first, and then Mark and Veta come up next.
And while Ash, Mark, and Lopez were off doing their own thing, Livy was actually got into the Turaco and found a really, really stubborn Dark Moon AI that she had to basically try to override, which she was able to, but it gave her a run for her money. And then she started pulling out circuit boards, trying to get rid of the AI. After a while, what they call them, the Dokab, which is basically
it's Castor.
Yeah, Castor, who's the brute that was leading the keepers from Last Light. He was given this nice little prominent position to stay on. The Salvation Base was actually given to him kind of as a gift. Do I want to go into this now, or let me wrap up this other part, and then we'll go into this piece.
Actually, during this part is when some of this starts coming up.
Yeah, but let's wrap up this part before we dive into another piece. So, Tokab and some of the other brutes, and I think some of the other races, I think humans were part of this too, go and actually cut into the ship that...
The Kigyar ship.
The Kigyar ship, I forget the name of it. They actually cut into it, they find the bodies, they're actually able to open the ramp, and they were trying to figure out what was going on, and the Dokab kind of felt betrayed a little bit and was interrogating the one guy that actually allowed the ship to land. By the time this was all going on, Blue Team had actually showed up with the Silent Joe, and they had gotten enough intel from the microburst that was given to them that they're about ready to just completely obliterate the base. But Fred convinced Captain Ewan, is that his name? Yeah, Ewan, to ping Team Comm for anyone out there. And that's when Livy actually responded, giving hints to Blue Team that Dark Moon was behind it, and that she was struggling with a uncooperative AI, which was the AI on the Turaco, which her communication got promptly cut off by the AI. But they knew this was not going to be just a cleanup and run type scenario. This is going to be kind of an extraction type of thing. So they were at Plan Delta. They had 3 different plans on what they would do based on the situation, and they had to improvise a new one, which was get Livy out with a Turaco, and if possible, get get Ash, Mark, and Lopez out if it was deemed, what was it, plausible or possible or easily done.
If it wouldn't endanger the mission, because they were actually just going to nuke Salvation Base.
And then, in addition, to figure out what happened to the Tua family. Thankfully, everything happened in a nice timeline where Mark and Lopez were actually informed by Ash that, hey, there's a temporal distortion in here. You need to get out as quickly as possible because they're about to blow us up down here. So Ash goes, fetches them, and by the time Blue Team actually crashes down onto Salvation Base, they're engaging with some of the Keepers. The Keepers see Lopez and Mark and Ash trying to make their way towards the Turaco, and they start engaging them as well. So there's this three-way fight going on.
Actually, four-way, because the other team that actually came in the Turaco was between...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Between the Turaco and the Mark, Ash, and Lopez.
Yeah, and it was either Mark or Ash that got down and actually disabled them because Lopez wanted to interrogate them for what actually happened. Unfortunately, by the time...
it was both of them.
Okay. One took out one guy, one took out the other.
No, one took out arms, one took out legs.
Oh, I thought one got the left guy, one got the right, but yeah, okay.
No, they basically, I think it was Mark who says, I'll take arms, you take legs.
It's like, well, okay, that works. And I think at one point, didn't one of the brutes from the Keepers get over to one of the guys and basically smash his head in or something? Or was that something else?
One of them was injured on the approach to the Turaco by the Keeper warriors because they were carrying him. And then Mark and Ash wounded the other three, I think there were. I think there was a total of four of them. And the Keepers were able to get to these particular operatives before Mark and Ash could. They took them away. They did kill one of them, but I think they captured the other three.
Lopez wasn't too happy about that, but Fred, Kelly, and Linda were trying to emphasize the fact that she needed to make sure that the mission was not the forefront of her mind, that the safety of her Spartans were. So they eventually all got aboard the Turaco and got off the planet.
And then the Silent Joe blew it up.
Yep. No more Salvation Base. Behind all of this too, and we'll I guess we'll touch on this now. Little Intrepid Eye was
been busy.
Yeah, very busy. Moved from Gao to Argent Moon, which for those that have a keen ear, well, no, that's the base that was monitoring installation. What was it, 707 from Halo 4?
And it's also happens to be well, it's actually a ship. It's also the level Blue Team. Argent Moon is the ship that they are
that's
on.
right. That's right.
So now you kind of get an idea of how Argent Moon got where it was. But basically, they go into the details.
So yeah, not Halo 4, but Halo 5. Sorry.
Halo 5, yes. Intrepid Eye has basically been isolated in it on her own standalone mainframe. And Oni has taken some extreme measures to isolate her, basically putting her in a Faraday cage so she can't send any electronic signals outside of her little cage.
But that hasn't exactly worked out the way that they thought.
They overlooked one little thing. The camera they had watching her produced some type of radio wave that she was able to hijack. And she was also able to sneak aspects of her out on, missed comm badges or data pads, watches, any little electronic device that the researchers had accidentally brought in with them. when they came to interview Intrepid about different Forerunner items and stuff like that.
And she took a particular liking to a certain scientist who was actually promoted to chief scientist because of his ability to actually get Intrepidi to talk, which was more of a ploy on Intrepidi's part to actually get things done that she wanted done.
He had the right mental attitude for her.
Yes.
In other words, he was easy to blackmail.
Mm-hmm. Very, very easy. Because Intrepidi got him to do certain things and bring certain things into the room that Intrepidi was in order to get some of his stuff or get some of her stuff accomplished. One of the things being setting up Dark Moon, which was actually run by a subroutine of her that she got spun off and was actually basically running Dark Moon on its own. And that's how it was able to basically go from have 1 month of a big startup private defense firm, because she basically had backdoor access into ONI files at this point. So she, and that's one of the reasons why we said earlier, it's basically a privatized ONI because it's using ONI related information to do a lot of the stuff that Dark Moon is doing.
And this Dark Moon AI that was on the Taraco was also another little spinoff of Intrepidi.
Yeah. Pretty resilient. Pretty stubborn, too. I'm actually kind of impressed that Olivia managed to practically eliminate her from the system.
Well, I guess you unplug enough stuff.
I guess. Don't have much more places to hide. So that's all going on with Intrepidi, and Intrepidi is the one actually responsible for the Tua's demise, well, not demise, but unfortunate ending, because there was a project that she had stumbled across in the ONI files called Sleeping Star, which was meant to weaponize a certain sickness or something.
It's a very deadly virus. She basically came across a file talking about chemical warfare. And the Tuas were the only people currently known that had a natural resistance to this particular virus.
Which may sound similar because that's what the Forerunners thought humanity had during the ancient human and Covenant and Forerunner spout.
Flood War.
The Flood War in the Greg Bear novels. They thought that humanity had an immunity to the flood, or certain humans had immunity to the flood, but it was really the flood choosing not to infect or not to appear to infect certain humans to get to throw the Forerunners off, I think.
Yeah, but this is not one of those cases. This one actually did happen, and it actually wiped out an entire human colony that is to this day still under quarantine.
So Intrepidi basically took this project and was trying to use it to her own ways to, and actually do something overall that was helpful to prepare humanity for the mantle responsibility. So part of the creating of the vaccine for this, what would have been a bioweapon, was in her mind to actually prepare humanity for taking over the roles that the Foreigners had left behind. In the end, I kind of feel a little bad. I know we're jumping to the end of the book, but
no, don't. Because Intrepidi, no. The whole reason Intrepidi was doing this research is to basically kill anyone and everyone that wouldn't
cooperate.
Part of the mantle. She was going to groom the human society to be worthy of the mantle. So she's basically doing the same thing as Cortana, just with chemicals instead of with guardians.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad for her.
I mean, there's some good intention there. Greater good type of thing. But
For a psycho. But anyway.
True.
But yes, Intrepid Eye's whole drive is to prepare humanity to accept the mantle of responsibility, which, they mention several times in this book.
That they do.
Just, her methods are a little crazy.
Now, you mentioned earlier that this didn't come as a surprise to you.
Nope.
Which part?
The fact that Intrepid Eye was going to find some way to attack humanity, and also that Oni was not going to be able to keep her quarantined.
Oh, yeah. With an Insular class AI.
At the end of Last Light, I'm like, yeah, we're going to hear from this one again. And it ain't going to be nice.
Yeah. There's a line in the book, too, where it was arrogance is a big form of weakness or something like that. Didn't she say?
Something like that.
To the one scientist guy. Cragdog. Or Cradog. It's a weird name.
Cradog?
Bartolin Cradog.
Yeah.
Is his name.
But anyway, the reason that she needed the Tuas is that she needed their DNA to create a vaccine. And the best way to do that is with live specimens, but seeing that she basically ran out of time and certain people were getting too close, she had them killed. Which this is where you start to see the depth of this plan. She's actually contracted with the president of Gao to eliminate the Keepers of the One Freedom. But in order to do that, she tricks Oni into eliminating the Keepers base.
Right. And then the Keepers get upset.
And then the Keepers, Castor mainly, figures out that Gao set Oni up to kill him, and Dark Moon Enterprises is in there somewhere.
Everyone's pointing fingers at this point.
Yeah.
And the only ones that
seem... It's all her fault, but anyway.
Yeah, and the only ones that seem to be catching on, and they haven't quite caught on yet, but is Lopiz and her team, that something's not right. The Keepers were set up. This isn't their doing. Someone else is behind the scenes here, and they eventually track it down to a science station on Gao because they determined that the time of death of the bodies was between 15 and 30 hours, which eliminated a certain range where slip space would have been done, and then there should have been a certain clean room labs or medical areas that would have been able to perform such surgery.
Yeah, through process of elimination, they get it down to like 9 planets. And then this dirt that I mentioned earlier that they found at the Salvation base narrowed it down to a region on Gao.
A region. That's some pretty good investigative analysis right there. And guess what? You have Lopiz going back to her home planet. Like they didn't get enough action already.
Upon arrival, they find that the base where the research facility that they had narrowed it down to had been leveled. Through some digging around, they figure out that it was the Keepers, and that the Keepers have a pretty significant head start on them. And somebody else is also trying to do some cleanup as well.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you don't care about spoilers, Bobby, because we're well into spoiler territory.
Yes, we are.
What was it?
Casillo?
Oh.
Is that the Prime Minister's or President's name? Casillo gets involved?
Casil, I think that's how you pronounce it. Casil. They actually, and I have to put this in context. Before they go down, the captain of the Silent Joes basically tells Fred, who's the leader of the little team, do not kill the president. This is not a termination type mission. And Fred's like, okay, we won't.
Don't have to tell me twice.
So what do? They kidnap him and threaten to kill him.
But they don't.
They don't.
And it was actually in Castillo's best interest to help Lopiz and her team out, try to figure out what is actually going on. Because he didn't actually know what was going on it was New Leaf Field Lab. He didn't know what was going on, but he had a pretty good idea of who would.
He didn't know everything was going on, but he did know that the Tuas were being held there.
Yes. And that was made apparent to him 2 weeks ago when he got a call from Director Agnes Sabra, who was the lead of the lab, basically freaking out because they had people that were being dissected and dead in the lab. Needless to say, she was kidnapped by the DACOB. The Keepers. And they were already on their way
to another familiar place.
Uh-huh. And another familiar entity that we have come to know as well. Was it Pinnacle Station or
Pinnacle Station?
Yep.
And it was Director Sloan or Administrator Sloan, or I forget what they actually called him. Yeah, the same one from Halo 5. And the same planet as Halo 5.
Maybe the same space elevator as Halo 5.
Possibly. But anyway, no, the space elevator wasn't there yet.
Well, there was some kind of docking port.
They were still, the Pinnacle Station was still under construction.
Okay.
They were still traveling from the station to the ground via ship.
It all ties in.
Yeah, it's kind of getting a little deeper now. Turns out that another AI that is a spinoff of Intrepid Eye. I'm not exactly sure how she got there. And somehow I missed that part. I think she shows up with the recovery team that Intrepid Eye sent from the research base that she's on.
Yeah, Papa 10. Which
their team name is Papa 10. And
the Rogue Oni Squad.
Also, they have tagging along the chief scientist. What was his name again? Yeah, Cradog. To recover the cryojars that are storing the Tua's organs.
And things don't go according to plan because the Keepers show up and they actually have brought with them the director of the lab, Director Agnes Sabara, and she was telling them everything they needed to know because she was afraid for her own life. So she was basically telling Castor everything that he wanted to know. And there were a few times where she was actually telling him what to do and actually coming up with possible solutions and scenarios. And he was like, well, normally I would be punishing her for insubordination or whatnot, but he was actually taking it really well.
Well, he realized that the anger of revenge was clouding his judgment.
Yes. But it's very, very different tactics than what we're used to seeing brutes use.
I mean, the stuff that Castor displays it's Atriox level stuff. I mean, he's really thinking through the fights and trying to maximize his advantages. He's just not going in swinging the hammer. He's really trying to see the big picture.
Right. Another thing with the boarding party from Castor, though, is they actually intercept the exchange in progress, what was supposed to be Papa 10 delivering the cryo jars to the one skidder that was going to take it back to Argent Moon.
Well, Papa 10 was picking up the cryo jars to take them back to Argent Moon.
Right.
Castor and his group intercepted the couriers and Papa 10 making the exchange. And Papa 10 pretty much took care of the couriers. No witnesses.
And then they ran and got in the little emergency escape ship and went down to the planet, and then they were closely followed by Castor and his group. And then there's a little interesting exchange from the Intrepidi entity that came with the carriers and Director or Administrator Sloan about the deal that they had with them using the port as a kind of an exchange base of operations. And then Sloan actually pulled some clever moves to kind of safeguard his people and his own
CYA, cover your ass.
Yes, basically.
Basically what this AI was wanting Sloan to do was blow up the ship that contained the Keepers. What Sloan promised was he'd do everything he could to stop them.
Which he really couldn't do anything.
Which did not include blowing up the ship because that wasn't possible. This is where you really get to see how deep Dark Moon's fingers go. This AI was able to promise substantial compensation to Pinnacle Station as a silent partner
from another entity
for Sloan's health through another front company.
I have a feeling Dark Moon isn't going to be the only thing that Intrepidi has going out there after this is done.
and that's one thing that they really hint at, that Intrepidi has got her fingers into a lot of stuff. But the Ferret team shows up shortly after the battle on the station, and under the guise that they are construction inspectors. And the funny thing is their escort kind of sees through that, but not completely. He assumes some things right and some things wrong. So they figure out
there's already assumptions that the things that are going down are because of Oni.
The fact that a Oni ship or a ship of inspectors shows up right after this battle concludes on the station was, one of the things that kind of triggered the suspicion.
It's like, yeah, you're Oni cleanup, aren't you? And they're like, yeah. Sure we are. It's convincing enough.
They do some inspections on the station, or they do some investigation on the station, and then they figure out that there's another Oni team involved, and they're not sure if they're a relief team or really what. They don't know whose side they're on. So they assume that they need to support this team. And they go down to the planet and they track down Castor and his soldiers and this team in a mine. And it turns out that Papa 10 is not exactly friendly.
Not really. They run over Fred with a 10-ton truck, which actually apparently does a lot of damage to a Spartan because his reactor started overloading, his AI was failing to reboot, certain aspects of his armor weren't working, like the gel layer of his suit was actually locking up because of the damage to try to protect him.
So if you want to hurt a Spartan, you have to run him over with a mining truck.
A pretty hefty mining truck, too.
So just keep one of those in your back pocket. You'll be good.
The scuffle in the cave, though, after Fred got run over, Lopez actually rolled underneath the truck and actually grabbed onto, I guess, one of the axles or some undercarriage part of the truck to stay along with it, because everyone else was either knocked out by what had gone on or was preoccupied by the time that the truck was driving away. And Castor was actually on
the back of the truck.
Right. And Lopez was underneath the truck.
I like the mentioning of the dangling foot. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was funny. By the time that they actually got out of the mine, so the mine was constructed in such a way that once you blast a certain part, there was actually I guess kind of an excavation tunnel near the bottom of the mine where stuff would come out. So Papa 10 obviously had a route out that they were trying to get to. So they were waiting kind of an ambush for the brutes to get there, and then they actually started an exchange of fire, or I think it was Fred sees one of the brutes and starts to engage him until he gets smashed by a boulder, and then that sets off a series of events that just confuses everybody, and then Lopez manages to grab on to the bottom of the truck, and they actually start heading out in the direction of this kind of excavation area. And once she sees Castor's leg go up into the truck, she starts moving around to where she can get up too. And eventually she does. She's able to actually kind of hide out near the back because the camo on her armor is still sort of working. And the brute actually is trying to get into one of the, I guess, little cockpit areas where two of the Papa 10 agents are, and starts fighting with them, trying to strangle them and get them to kind of stop. She gets in. She actually sets a det cord, or the equivalent of det cord, on all of the cryo cylinders. And at one point...
Well, it's significantly more than just det cord. She manages to put like C4 explosives on them. But during this time, Castor and the three people left of Papa 10 were so distracted with each other that they didn't see her climb into basically the loader bed, the dump bed of the dump truck. You have two members of Papa 10 in a bucket, like a loader bucket on the front of the machine. And then you have another member of Papa 10 driving the truck. Castor is fighting the two in the bucket with his bare hands, and they're
fighting back a little bit.
They're fighting back with laser drills,
which apparently are pretty powerful because they cut one of the Oni guys in half once Castor got a hold of one of them.
Yeah. Well, it is designed to go through rock, so I think it'd go through flesh pretty good.
I'd rather have that over the Spartan laser.
Castor manages to kill the two in the bucket and is attempting to get to the one driving. And the cryo canisters are, they're in the loader bed. But while Castor is trying to get to the driver, he happens to notice something in the bed.
And it just dawned on Lopez that she just got dragged through a lot of wet mud, and her active camo suit may look like it has floating mud on it.
Yeah.
So she actually stands up, turns off the cloaking thing, and is basically pointing her M6 at the brute and signals for him to jump. He doesn't take it right away, but after bouncing around enough, he got
bounced out.
Yeah, he got bounced out. Then she jumps out, and at this time she was actually trying to reach blue team over, and the other Spartans are over team comm. She didn't have anything, so she made her own decision to blow it all up.
Well, she did manage to wait until they actually started shooting at her before they blew it up. And the driver basically gets away to the point where they're getting ready to unload the truck and put it on a ship to escape. And Lopez detonates the C4, which levels the truck and the spaceship. And they find pieces of two people scattered about. One of them happens to be... Cradog's.
Remains. He's over there, and up there to steal a comedic line. And there's one part to the end of, I guess, kind of this piece of the story where Castor was kind of out and seeing Lopez and seeing the debris and everything, was contemplating whether or not to approach Lopez and try to get her help to kind of get off the planet, or kind of fend for himself. And it kind of sucks that it just leaves it there. That doesn't go any further than that.
But they didn't kill him.
They didn't kill him, no. But that was one of those things, as I finished it up tonight, I'm like, I would have loved to know what happened. Maybe we'll see in Legacy of Onyx or another future Halo book, but it was kind of nice to see that Castor kind of got the revenge that he was looking for. And that he really wasn't that bad of a guy.
He's portrayed early in the book as, a pretty bad person or being, let's put it that way. And the further you get into the book, you see that most of his rage is pointed towards Gao because Casil betrayed him. Most of the ships that he is commandeering are Gao transports. The people that he's kidnapping are Gao citizens.
And not to mention, Intrepid Eye was trying to kill him because his use was now over since Salvation Base was destroyed. Right. He didn't know that, but Intrepid Eye was trying to get rid of the Keepers of the One Freedom after the whole Salvation Base thing.
No loose ends.
Nope. So that wasn't successful. Retrieving of Tua's body parts wasn't successful, so a lot's been dampened in her plans. And at the end of the book, it's mentioned that she would have used, or thinks Lopez is a very prime candidate for kind of the track of humanity to take the mantle of responsibility, but she's interfered with her plans so many times, it's more of a nuisance to her than worth trying to convince her to help her.
You're more of a hindrance than a help. You basically, pretty much this whole mess gets pinned on Kradog because the way Intrepid Eye worked.
Has been controlling the situation. Yep. There's no mention of Intrepid Eye in the Oni logs at all, and Intrepid Eye goes one step further to alter the Oni records that's actually being, I guess, kind of copied over to Argent Moon. That's meant for, I guess, the director of Argent Moon.
Yeah, this is basically a letter of orders sent by Saren Osman to shut down the project. Yeah, to Argent Moon, the commander of Argent Moon, to shut down the project, to destroy any and all samples of the virus and any notes regarding it. And the two assistants that were working on the project should disappear.
Terminated with prejudice.
And Intrepid Eye she agrees with most of the recommendations that are put forth in this report, with the exception of, terminating the progress of the research. So she kind of does some creative editing.
Creative editing, I think, is a very light way to put it.
And the station AI notices that she has this communication. And I think this is where things just kind of get weird. If the station AI can see Intrepid Eye, then that means there's a connection there. Why isn't he saying anything?
Intrepid Eye being sneaky.
I think Intrepid Eye has infected the station's AI with some type of virus. They don't ever say it in there, but they imply it a lot. But you'd think there would be some other kind of record.
Well, probably in maybe certain Oni data stores there are, but in the one that's coming to Argent Moon, definitely not. But yeah, it is weird. The Argent Moon's official AI Rooker basically says you don't have authorization to change that. And then I guess somehow Intrepid Eye convinces him, saying that, well, no, these orders are specifically for the base commander or whatever her name is.
I don't know how they showed up. They just showed up. They must have been sent wrong.
It's intended for the station commander has Admiral Friedel's name in the destination header. basically manipulating the data to look like it came in officially without really being official. You're talking about an Ancilla class AI, which is probably miles above any kind of AI that humanity has ever made.
Probably.
Just a guess. Just a hunch. That's the end of the book.
I mean, it's not a bad read.
No. Probably not the last we'll see of Intrepid Eye. Probably not the last we'll see of Castor either. I hope we see him again somewhere. Not sure where we would see him, but...
Well, I think he's going to be... Well, I kind of hope that he's going to be kind of a recurring character in this particular storyline.
Better than Julam Dama. I just
they're not quite done beating that horse yet, but we'll discuss that later. For those of you that have already read Legacy of Anna, you'll get it. But anyway, overall, it wasn't a bad story. I like mostly what they did with Intrepid Eye. It was pretty much what I expected after Last Light.
I would agree.
I would have liked a little bit more lead into the Argent Moon type fiasco. Maybe a little bit more of a primer as to this event that happened on the Argent Moon.
I almost think they did that intentionally to just show the prowess that Intrepid Eye had to get Dark Moon up and running so quick and how all of her plans are working so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been nice to have a primer, but I think there's a literary move behind it. Because everything else has a primer.
Yeah, and unless, they have another book plan to kind of go between this point and the Blue Team mission in Halo 5. Or, somewhere around in there. Like from this time to where, and then to the point where Argent Moon goes missing.
Well, and I think that may be why Necessary Truth was kind of thrown in there. It hints at something, and then we get where the hint comes from in this book. You can kind of tie the two together, even though it is like 6 months apart. You just see the magnitude of what Intrepid Eye actually is doing.
All in all, really good story.
Yeah, really is. I'm going to throw in a random giveaway for folks that are here.
Free stuff!
Yay, since it's related, and I was actually moving some stuff this weekend, and I found that I had these. But I have some spare Boomco spikers, if anyone is interested, since we are talking about a story with brutes. So for anyone that is interested, just type in spiker into the chat, and then we'll throw you into the random number generator. While we're doing that, we're going to look at our Spartan Company kill masteries. We are still with 4 level 4s. We have Road Trip, which needs another 65. Only 65. We can get that.
Castle War's still up?
I don't think so.
No, Castle War's not up because they got that other one. Tarn.
Yeah.
That was so good for road trips.
I know. It totally was. Especially when you're the traditional one where you have the pillars on the side and you just have that one corridor. You can just probably get like 4 or 5 sliders in one go. Yeah. Forget to Pay the Toll has another 32. That one's close as well. Although that other one is a little more difficult. And then Pain Train has another 485. And Sorry Mate, which is Killing the Marines, has another 3,513. The closest one that we have is that level 5 is still from the top rope. That's Killing Enemy Spartan with the Ground Pound. And we have another 505 to go. Looks like only Bobby and Confound went to Spiker. Liquid Blaine, Haas, G. Lewis is still here. I don't know if he's here. Coin Toss, yeah. That'd be funny. Actually, if you guys want to do a Rochambeau, I'll do it that way. That'd be funny though. Or wait, do the well, if we had enough people, we could do a battle royale type of thing.
Rock, paper, scissors.
We're going to do probably Legacy of Onyx as our next book, and I actually have a work trip coming up in a couple of weeks. So I'm thinking We might do a book a month, or try to do a book a month, with the exception of March, because that's my wedding month. And
excuses. It's not like you won't have any time to read on your honeymoon.
Well, honeymoon is July, and I'm not counting off that month. It's just more wedding prep and all the crazy management of all that stuff. Yeah, you know. So
yeah, I know.
Month of March and the month of August, because August is going to be RTX, PAX Prime.
PAX is in August this year?
Yeah, it's always Labor Day weekend, and it's usually the very end of August.
Oh yeah, well, it is. Never mind.
So probably not the month of March and not the month of August, but the plan is to catch up and possibly do a Halo book a month for this year, especially since we have some downtime. So we're probably going to do Legacy of Onyx next, and then after that we may do Broken Circle or Hunters in the Dark or Fractures or Tales from Slip Space or Graphic Novel or Rise of Atriox. We'll figure it out. But next month's book we're going to just kind of earmark as Legacy of Onyx for now.
At least stay with the current books.
And then
we'll get to the backlog.
Right. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. Hopefully we'll see you guys next week. I think the plan is to keep the podcast on Thursdays for the time being, unless we see another sudden change in when updates get posted by Grim. Then we may change stuff again. We'll see how that goes. You can check us out on all of our social media platforms. If we have it, just search Podtacular for it. We are on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Mixer, Instagram, Spartan Companies, Xbox Club. If we have it, Podtacular, and you'll find it. We have the first 41 episodes of the Podtacular podcast actually up on our YouTube right now. We're in the process of uploading the rest of what I call the first season, which is the first 158 episodes, which was the time Fumo Jive was hosting the show. So within the next couple of weeks, all those will be uploaded. I have another 15 episodes actually render out. So by this time next week, everything should be done for the quote unquote first season of Podtacular. So all of those episodes back from the good old days of Podtacular will be up on the YouTube channel for you to listen to. You can still download the episodes through the website as well if you prefer to do it that way. YouTube's just another avenue for you to listen to it. Also, make sure you check out our podcast network. We're part of a network of gaming-specific shows, which includes Guardian Radio, Critscast, Podcast 76, The Learning Cliff, Work in Progress, and How to Murder Time. You can find out more about those shows over at thepodcast.com and let them know that we sent you. Looks like we're going to be battling between Bobby and Confowl for the Spiker, so we'll get that done here after the show. But make sure you guys check us out on Friday nights. GT has his game night. I will actually be there this week as we take on the noobs coming into Halo 5 for the free weekend. Also, make sure you check out Loot Crate. Podtacular.com/Loot Crate for the Halo Crate. The newest theme is Let's Get Tactical. Has Johnson, RB, Guilty Spark, Emphasis. Orders are due by February 15th at midnight Eastern Time. That's February 15th at 9 p.m. Pacific Time. So until next time, keep on fragging dark moons, the dark side of moons.